Hey guys, it's Melissa here from melissaoatman.com. Welcome to Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, a daily podcast devoted to spirituality and self-help. If you're new, I want to welcome you. If you're returning, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about the importance of having people around you who inspire you and make you want to be a better person and to help make a difference in this world. As many of you who are listeners and followers of my podcast know, we lost a great woman in my family just yesterday. My great aunt passed away at the age of 94, and she was an incredible woman. And I want to tell you a little bit about her because I think that her story is very inspiring. And I know that she definitely was one of the major influences in my life. So if it hadn't been for her and my mom and my grandma and being around other strong women, you wouldn't be hearing from me today because I would never have made it through the life that I've had. I've had to go through a lot of obstacles, and there were times in my life when I really just didn't think I was going to make it through. But it was the wisdom and teaching of these women, the values they instilled in me, all of these things from a very young age is really what I can attribute to my being here and being a success. Because if I wanted to really think about a woman who was hardworking, she definitely comes to mind. My Aunt G was incredible because she owned her own beauty shop. And this was back when women really didn't work, right? But she owned her own beauty shop in her basement, and she raised her daughter. And she was married to my papa. You've heard me talk about him before. And she was able to run this beauty shop, raise her daughter, and her home was always immaculate. In fact, I was thinking about it yesterday. I was thinking about how that's one area where sometimes my life takes a backseat is the cleanliness of my home. Not that it's filthy by any means, but just it's not what my aunt would have had. You know, there are closets that sometimes get cluttered. And I'm always telling people, oh, you've got to clean out your closets. You've got to declutter because that's taking up space. I'm bad about that too. You know, it's easy just to throw things in a closet. So organization is not one thing that I did necessarily inherit from her, but she always had everything super organized. And not only did she have things organized, not only did she work in the beauty shop and raise her daughter, she also used to bake cakes for weddings. She did my wedding cake. And I will have to apologize to her someday for doing that because she wasted her time. No, I'm just kidding. And it was a beautiful cake too, and she used fresh flowers. But she used to bake cakes. She baked cakes for a lot of weddings. And I know she did for my cousins, and they would be these huge cakes and like filled cakes too, you know, with like a fruit filling or whatever, not like simple. And I remember she would make the flowers, the roses, the icing roses, and I would sit with her and watch her. I was just fascinated by it. I remember going to the cake baking supply store with her and just being overwhelmed at all of the things that were in this store because they had, at the time, the kind of cakes that were popular were those doll cakes where they would have the doll figure and then you would make the cake that looked like the skirt around the doll. So they'd have these dolls in the store and they would have cookie cutters and they had all of the things to make the roses and the icing bags and just all kinds of things. I would get lost in that store, just amused by everything that I saw there. But I remember just sitting and watching her make those icing roses, and she made it look so easy, and she let me try a couple of times, and I did not do a very good job. And in fact, when I later went on to work as a teenager at the Dairy Queen, and they taught me how to make cakes and to ice those cakes, I remember thinking, wow, I should have paid more attention with Aunt G, because I really did not do a good job with the roses, but she was great. She could do all of that. And then she'd still find time to like bake cookies with us and make popcorn and spend time with us. And even in my own life, just reflecting on the memories that I had with her, I think back and I think, how does she do all of that? Like, I just was complaining today to some of the teachers that I work with that there just are not enough hours in the day. For example, today I was thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get this podcast done, because we have family coming in for the funeral and we're going to have to go and visit with them. And I'm doing this meal prep thing now, so I'm trying to get everything ready for that. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming sometimes. And I know that it's all about having balance. So I always try to, of course, balance my life. But if I think about how she was able to do it all, and I just have no idea how. She must have had like superhuman energy, because I don't know how she did it. I really don't. But she was sort of the glue that held the family together. We would have dinners at our house, and not only could she bake cakes, she was an excellent cook, of course. And she would have pies and cakes and cookies and everything for people to share. And, people at her church, if anybody was, ill or whatever, she would make them something and take them. I can remember going with her to take dishes to people's homes when they were sick, or, when they lost a loved one. She was just that person, that dynamic person that in the community people would say, oh my gosh, she did so much and she was so beloved. And it's true, she was. And I have to say that I was very fortunate and blessed to have her as a role model. My grandma, my dad's mom, lived far away. She lived in Michigan, and it was an 8-hour drive, so we saw her maybe once or twice a year. My Aunt G lived right next door to my mom. It's funny, so my mom and dad living in the house that my dad grew up in. And my dad's dad, my grandpa, built that house, and then he sold the land next door to his brother-in-law and sister-in-law, who are my Aunt G and Papa, and then they built their house there. So my dad and his cousin, Aunt G and Papa's daughter, grew up like brother and sister instead of just cousins. And so then when the next generation came in, we were always over there. We spent the night there. She babysat for us. I was constantly at their house. I remember we didn't even knock. We would just walk in their house. It's like the door was always open. And it was maybe just a few feet to walk from our back porch to her back porch and just walk in. And they always had this "you're welcome anytime" policy. We'd just walk in. And we stayed there quite a bit. In fact, I kind of consider that to be like my home too, growing up. And it was a really, really awesome thing, because personally, I don't think that you can ever have too much family. And I don't think that you can ever have too many beautiful and strong role models around you. And we were fortunate enough to have quite a few. And I love that. I think that it's such a tribute that so many generations were affected by her, really. And towards the end, she was the last one from her generation. My grandma had passed away, her husband, her sister, they were all gone, and she was the only one left of that generation. And she really still was like the glue holding the family together, because she would still bring the pies whenever we would have a family get together. And was still very full of life up until probably just the last year or so, when her health started to fail. And I have to say that she's left such a beautiful legacy for this family. And it's so important to have people that you can look up to in your life. But we were fortunate enough that she was family. But I know there are a lot of people who have role models they look up to who aren't family. Because let's face it, sometimes the hand you're dealt in life is that you're dealt with a family who's toxic and you don't want to be around them. And I totally understand that and get that too. And I am really sorry if that is your hand. But I also know that it's not just about the people you were blood related to. It's not the family you were born into. Sometimes we also create our own families. I am fortunate enough to also have many friends who are strong female role models that I am fortunate enough to call friend, and they're not blood related, but they're family to me. And it's very rare in this world to have people where you have such a close relationship that you do call them family when they're not. And I don't know, I think it's even rarer sometimes when people actually are your family and you're still close, because, family can bring drama sometimes. But it's so important that you have someone in your life who supports you and who values you and helps teach you things. And again, it can be your family or not. But I think that the universe always brings us people in our lives who can help us, help us grow, help us learn. And I'm grateful for those people in my life. And they're not just women. There are other people in my life, men too, who've shaped me and helped me to be who I am. But as I was thinking about the legacy that is my aunt, it's the women in the family that really stood out to me, because growing up, that's what I was around a lot. And it's really, really amazing to be able to look back on all of the memories that I had and smile knowing that she was right there through all of the things. I can remember kindergarten graduation. I remember pictures and seeing her there. And I remember my first softball game. That was terrible. We were so horrible at softball. And I can remember her being there, and there's a picture of her hugging us after the game in our uniforms, even though we were like the worst team there. And I'm pretty sure she was probably there when we got our trophies, and it was funny because they would get progressively smaller as you got worse. The worse the team, the smaller the trophy. But it was around that generation where everyone gets a trophy. So we got a trophy. It was like 2 inches tall. It was super small. It was like the smallest thing ever because we were that bad. But she was a part of that, and she was there. And I would urge you to think about the people in your life who've helped shape you and helped to make you a better person. And reach out to those people and tell them what they mean to you. Just say thank you to them, because they have definitely impacted you. And sometimes we never even know the impact that we've had on people's lives. I often think about that as a teacher. My students will say, thank you if I hold the door open, or for different things, they'll say thank you, and they're polite and they're nice. But it isn't often that a student will come forward and say, I loved your class, you made a difference to me, thank you so much. I've had students come forward and do that. But it's just a thing that nowadays a lot of kids don't really want to do that. And I understand you don't want to draw attention to yourself or embarrass yourself by, I think that's a big part of it. And there have been so many kids after the fact who came to me and said, thank you so much for what you did. And I didn't even know that child cared. You know what I mean? And I always try to show each child that you matter and you're important in my class, but I never really know how they like my class, or if they like my class. Sometimes you do, but I don't know. I think teenagers are just a creature sometimes that they just don't really want to express that too much, I've noticed. But then later, they'll come right out and say, oh, you're my favorite teacher, and I took German all 4 years because of you, and you had no idea. So I think it's so important to let people who matter to us know that they matter. I know that she knew that, But I think it's just a nice gesture, and it's so important to let people know how important they are to you while they're still here. Because we get so busy in our day-to-day lives, and we just don't even take the time to really show people. And again, it comes down to me wondering how she managed to find balance, and how was she able to do all the things she did, because it just seemed like she was everywhere. And some days I feel like I don't even have time to breathe, let alone do all the things that I know I have to do. And I know and I don't do near the amount of things that she did. So it's just important that when life gets hectic like that, you take time, like slow down and really appreciate the people who matter to you, and take the time to let them know what they meant to you. You know, we never know what tomorrow holds or how long we have with each person. And you don't want to feel regret. You want to feel like you've lived your life to the fullest, and that you've expressed everything to everyone to the fullest. And it's not a matter of, oh, well, I won't see her again. I know I'm going to see her again. I believe in crossing over in the other side, and that we will all be together again. And we don't die, we don't disappear, right? We just leave this particular energetic plane and we move on to another one. And it's comforting to know that it's not a final goodbye. But I do know that I will miss her until I do see her again. So just a gentle reminder that it's important to never take people for granted. And I hope that you have people you look up to who can help you, who are that role model for you, like what I had. You know, I had women who survived a lot and kept going. I know with my aunt, my uncle passed away very suddenly. He had a massive heart attack. I remember I went to school and he was fine, and I got an early dismissal and he was already gone. And in that instant, you know, her life changed. She went from being married to someone she had been dating since school to single. And it was a huge adjustment for her. But she kept going and she went on, and she eventually also remarried. And then that partner too became sick, only he had a slow illness and had dementia and Alzheimer's, and it was a slow illness. And so she was still strong through that and lived even longer beyond him, and had been going strong until really like just about a year ago. So she lived life to its fullest, though. I know that for sure. And I will be forever grateful for the influence that she was on me, on my children, my whole family. She was amazing. So I'm completely humbled for having known her. And I know that many lives have been changed for having known her. So I'm grateful for the time I had with her. They were the most important years. They were the formative years of my life. So what can I say? How do you say thank you to that enough? So again, if you don't have people in your life that you feel like you can look up to, you can ask the universe to bring you your soul tribe. The universe puts people in our path who can help us learn and grow. And I love that, because as I've been on my spiritual awakening, I've met so many amazing people I never would have known had I not been going through this process. And they've definitely made my life richer and more colorful, and have often thrown my own lessons back in my face, which is amazing and funny. And while I think the universe has an amazing sense of humor sometimes, but we do need to be reminded of things, and sometimes even I forget that the universe then has to remind me of. So I'm very grateful for my whole tribe. So if you don't have somebody, first of all, you can join my Facebook group. You can follow me on social media. I love interacting with people, so anytime you want to post things and, comment, it's great to just meet people who are like-minded, who can, talk about the same things. So you can consider following me on social media. I wanted to pull a card for you before I left, and the card that I pulled is from the Archangel Oracle deck by Doreen Virtue, and it is Career Transition. It's Archangel Shamuel. Your life purpose is triggering a blessed career change. So I don't know who needs to hear that, but I know there are a lot of people lately who have sent me messages and who have talked to me about how their career just doesn't feel fulfilling anymore, and they feel like they need a change, only they don't know what needs to change. And so I think this is a sign, an affirmation for you that yes, there's a change coming. And maybe get clear about what it is you want. What does your dream career look like for you? And what would make you happy? I think that above everything, you need to do what's going to make you happy. You don't want to be stuck in a career that you hate, where it feels like every day is 5 years long. That's no fun. And I've had both careers. I've had a career where I hated it, and I've had a career where I loved it. And the career that I loved, my years have gone by so fast. So in a good way. So I hope that is helpful. And I want to thank you to all of you who have sent out well wishes for my family and prayers. I've definitely felt the love, and I really appreciate it. It has been a difficult time for us, but I'm hoping to get back on track and get things back to normal. But I'm human, so, yesterday I needed a day to recover because we found out that she passed right before I had to go live on Facebook, like 5 minutes before I had to go live. So I had to make it a very quick Facebook Live because I was about to just lose it and cry and not be able to hold it together on my Facebook Live because I'm human. And luckily I was able to hold it together and tried to fake it. But I really appreciate those of you who showed up and who sent positive words of encouragement and blessings and prayers and positive energy. I felt all of it. I'm so completely grateful for each and every one of you. I send you all love and blessings every day, and I hope that you can feel that from me, from my heart space. If you would like to work with me, there are so many ways. You can go to my website and check that out. Also, if you would share my podcast with others or leave feedback, leave stars on iTunes or leave an actual written review, that helps me so much. It helps others find me, which helps me to complete my mission here. And also, I've started something new. If you feel like you would like to donate to this channel, I don't get paid to do this podcast. And so I spend a lot of my own energy creating this for you. If you feel like you would want to do an energy exchange, I have my Venmo username. And if you feel so inclined and would want to donate, that would be super appreciated. Again, though, it is not a, yes, you have to donate. I just put that there because some people asked if they could. So yes, you can donate. I would really appreciate that. If you feel like an episode has really moved you or helped you, that would be amazing to leave an energy exchange, and I thank you for that. I don't want to have to start going through all this advertising or whatever to pay for my podcast. I just want to be able to get my message out. So I want to thank you for all of you for joining me. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything from me, if you want to work with me. You can pay online through PayPal, but I also can send a PayPal invoice. And you don't have to have PayPal to pay that way. So lots of ways to work with me. You can check it all out on my website. If you're interested in my new Reiki course coming up, go to my website. You can read more information about it under the Yusui Reiki course page. And it has information about the course. And then there's a purple button that says, I'm interested in the course. You can sign up now. And as soon as I get a group together, I am going to start the course. So when you fill out that form online, it lets me know that you're interested. When I have a group that is large enough, I'm going to then do the course. I'd like to do it as a group course. So go to my website and look for that. And again, don't forget to join me on my Facebook Lives, Mondays at 5:30 Central, where I do a free reading for you. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.